Hello, my name is Louis Reset, and I will be discussing the history of female characters in video games. The first successful commercial video games were released as arcade games in the 1980s.
The earliest human female character in a video game, the unnamed woman in Nintendo's 1981 release of Donkey Kong, is shown as a passive observer of events rather than an active participant. In this game, she represents a damsel in distress who must be saved by the active male character, Jumpman, later known as Mario. This objectification of women stems from both Japanese cultural heritage and an intended male audience for Nintendo's game. However, not all arcade games catered exclusively to males. The success of the original Pac-Man with female audiences prompted the release of Miss Pac-Man by a non-related company in order to attract female gamers. This marketing strategy is related to research findings that women will relate more to games that have female protagonists than those that have male protagonists. Surprisingly, developers actually face pressures to not include female characters in games.
In order to avoid censorship for including violence against women in his game, the developer for Final Fight later announced that Roxy, the female antagonist, was actually a transvestite.
In 1984, Nintendo expanded into the home console video game market with the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Arguably the most famous game ever created, Super Mario Bros., it continued Nintendo's earlier tradition of including women as passive objects to be saved. Nintendo's later release, Metroid, was the first mainstream game to include a sexualized female character, although this character was only found to be female if the player actually beat the game. In 1994, Sony released the PlayStation 1. One of the most famous games for this console, the original Tomb Raider, appealed to male gamers by including a female character with impossible body dimensions.
Multiple studies have found that this exaggeration of body features can have negative effects on the body images of both male and female players. This could explain why games such as Tomb Raider alienate female gamers. Outside of the console market, games designed for the personal computer were seen as less exclusively male than those designed for consoles.
In 1996, Mattel released Barbie Fashion Designer, the first game to be truly successful with female audiences.
Come along with me, now I'm in your PC. With Fashion Designer, make clothes that look good on me. What do you want to make?
The success of this game, combined with a correlation between exposure to video games and advancement in technological fields, inspired a series of girl games. These games attempted to bring traditionally female values into the virtual world with slow-paced, violence-free games that featured female protagonists. Most were commercially unsuccessful. In 1997, Nintendo released its first console capable of three-dimensional graphics, the N64. Interestingly, Nintendo began including female characters in its games who broke traditional gender roles. For example, the princess in The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time disguises herself as a male character in order to help the main player throughout the game. This trend toward more progressive games is best highlighted by the Super Smash Bros. Series, which initially only included one female playable character. In 2001, Nintendo released its next-generation console, the GameCube. Super Smash Bros. Melee, the next game released for this system, included 4 explicitly female characters. One of the first games to be truly successful with the adult female market was The Sims, released in 2000. The game featured simplistic controls and an open-ended storyline that allowed players to project themselves into the characters of the virtual family they were controlling. This appeal to escapism in a character is further demonstrated by the online game Second Life, which allows users to create an idealized version of themselves.
Very idealized.
The most successful massive multiplayer online game, World of Warcraft, sexualizes its main characters in order to appeal to both male and female players. In 2001, Microsoft joined the console market with the release of the Xbox. The most famous game for this system, the original Halo, featured a male protagonist with several female support characters. This demonstrates marketing towards males who are traditionally more inclined to play first-person shooting games.
In 2005, Microsoft released what is the first of the current generation of consoles, the Xbox 360. One of the most popular games for this system, Halo 3, had a surprisingly progressive feature. Players could choose the gender of their character with no effect on gameplay. In 2006, Nintendo released its current generation console, the Wii. Wii Sports, the game released with the Wii console, demonstrates egalitarian gameplay. The player's choice of gender or race has no effect on the status of the game. This egalitarian game design allowed Nintendo to reach audiences that traditionally do not play video games. These egalitarian games, such as Wii Fit and Wii Music Maker, are termed casual games. They are typically easy to learn and require a relatively small time commitment. This design philosophy is motivated by research findings that, on average, women have smaller blocks of free time available than men. This means that games designed for men will often have more complex stories and steeper learning curves than those games designed for women. In 2006, Sony released the PS3, a system designed more for these male games. The system had much better hardware than the Wii, but was prohibitively expensive, especially for first-time gamers. This means that games designed for the PS3 were marketed more towards traditional gamers, that is, teenage males. So how have female characters changed since their initial roles in the earliest video games? Better rendering and processing capabilities have allowed sexualization of female characters. However, the fact that many women now do play video games has created a market for non-sexualized characters. Overall, the video game industry has responded to these trends through niche marketing. That is, games are designed with a specific audience in mind. Finally, to demonstrate that there are non-casual feminist games, I would like to call attention to two particular titles. The first, Beyond Good and Evil, presents a complex female protagonist who uses journalistic abilities and stealth to outwit an occupying army. Jade is shown as a non-sexualized, competent female character with a wide range of skills and abilities. Portal, Valve's mind-bending teleportation game, also presents a playable, non-sexualized female character, although this character can only be found to be female by exploiting the physics of the game.
These titles represent progress towards games including realistic, heroic, and non-sexualized female characters.